Hello, friends. It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. And tonight we're talking about perfectionism. Perfectionism. If you are a perfectionist, today's episode is for you. I was reading today about the Enneagram, and I cannot remember for the life of me who the author of this particular Enneagram book is. Richard Rohr wrote the foreword to this particular book, and it was when I scrolled through Amazon, my Amazon Cloud books, it was in there as an Amazon Unlimited book in Kindle. So that might be a way for you to get there, or I guess I could just post the author in the links. But it was interesting. One of the first type he talked about, obviously, was the perfectionist. Type 1 in the Enneagram is called the perfectionist. And it was interesting because I kind of got this sense. This particular book about the Enneagram was coming from a spiritual frame, a spiritual context, not just a personality context. And so in that light, he was talking about many times how a type, an Enneagram type, has, he didn't say the word shadow, but there's like this ego, shadow, place we operate from in our types in response to the things we're afraid of, for example. And then there is the opposite, which would be like the evolved awareness, the divine side, the light aspect of the type. And so he talked about the perfectionist in the, again, he didn't say ego, but we're going to use that word, but the perfectionist in the ego has such a drive to control something to be perfect. Actually, what I got out of it also was that it's a good thing. If you're a perfectionist, it's a good thing. It's a good thing because you have this desire and this craving for order and things to be right, and that's good. And I don't have that. That's not me. but it's that's good because sometimes we make ourselves and our perfectionism out to be wrong, because our perfectionism often gets in the way of us implementing things, actually putting our work out in the world. For many perfectionists, they wait and wait and wait to do something because what they've created doesn't measure up to the standard in their head. And so I see this all the time in marketing. I've had quite a few perfectionists come through my programs on marketing. And it's very hard in the beginning because you creating marketing, you giving voice to the message that's in your soul. While in your soul it feels good, but you start to try to put words to it and it doesn't come out the way it feels in your soul. And so it kind of feels messy. And to a perfectionist, that's really hard. It's really hard to put something out in the real world that isn't perfect if you're a perfectionist. So I get that. And this is why we can feel like our perfectionism is not a gift. But in fact, it is. It is a gift. But when done, when approached inside of the ego or inside of this controlling aspect because of the fear of something being imperfect, it sabotages its own beauty, its productiveness. So let's go look at the flip side of this for now. On the flip side of this, when the author was talking about this, the flip side would be that in the divineness of it all, what you can start to see, what perfectionists, what type 1s in the Enneagram will start to experience is the perfection of it all, the perfection of creation, the perfection of the way it is, the perfection of the way it is. That's different, right? And so when a perfectionist can rise above the ego and this desire to control something to be perfect because of the fear of something not being perfect, and they can get to the place of awareness where they can see what is as perfect, then a whole new game opens up, a whole new world opens up. And this is cool, right? Because if you are a perfectionist and you could think about marketing as your soul's expression, that your soul wants to say something and that you had grace for your soul to, grace and space for your soul to say what it wanted to say. And however it came out, because it is your soul, however it came out would be perfect. And not perfect because it was eloquent, not perfect because it had the right words. It was perfect because it came from your soul. Can you get the difference, right? Like a perfectionist who's trying to control it wants it to sound a certain way and have the right words and be eloquent. But a perfectionist whose awareness is expanded could see whatever the soul wanted to say and it came out. It could see the perfection in what the soul was expressing. Again, not because it was eloquent and not because it was the right words, but because it came from the soul. Do you see the difference? And that was, as I was reading that today, I'm like, that is so cool because I know so many people feel imprisoned by their perfectionism. And it sounded like, again, I don't think I'm a perfectionist. I kind of like am the guy that builds the plane on the way down, like, or the parachute on the way down. But what it sounded like to me was that there was access to a new relationship to the work that you do, and that your work is perfect because of the expression that it is, not because of the way it looks or sounds. So if you are a perfectionist in business for yourself, or just in life for that matter, here's the invitation. Begin to try on the perfectness of things, not because of the way they look and sound, but because of where they come from, because of just how they are. When we look at kids, right? When we look at babies and toddlers and kids and their innocence, we look at that and we go, that's perfect. That's amazing. Like, look at these perfect creations. They're perfect. And we don't judge them for the way they sound and their intelligible words and their, right, the words that don't make sense. And we just look and we go, that is perfect. And similarly, I think for the utterings that the soul is trying to come out of you and say to the world, those also are perfect, regardless of how they look and sound. So that's it for tonight, gang. I want you to look at that and see if you can't get related to the perfection of the source, perfection of where your message and your work comes from, not necessarily from the way it looks and sounds. And that's it. So thanks for hanging out with me in this episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. For those of you who are perfectionists, here's to you embracing the perfection of what is. See you tomorrow.